What's going on, folks? Welcome to 34 Questions. I'm your host, 34, and today I am joined by Christiana is in the building. How you doing?
I'm so good. How are you?
Doing well. Did I do okay with the pronunciation there?
It was perfect.
Awesome. I want to thank you for stopping by and, being open to do this interview. Definitely appreciate you sharing your story.
Heck yeah, I'm excited.
Glad to hear it. For the folks out there who are unfamiliar with the flow of the show, we do some intro questions, some warm-up questions in the beginning, and then we'll jump into the main portion where we'll spin the wheel and you'll be answering questions wherever it lands. And after that, we'll finish up with some concluding questions. Sound good to you?
Sounds fab.
Awesome. Well, my very first question for you is, how have you been? You've been doing well. You've been doing great. How you been lately?
I love this. I've been doing so well. We just got back from a vacation, so I feel like it's just been like rejuvenated, feeling great, kind of getting back into the flow of things. So thank you for asking that.
Yeah, no worries. I always want to know where my guests are coming from. Hopefully they're doing well, but if not, we can also talk about it as well. First vacation of being kind of normal, or you've been traveling?
This was like the full family vacation. So we did a road trip, 14 hours there, 14 hours back with all three kids. So it was more than just happy and exciting. It was also hard and exhausting, but that's okay. We like all the emotions around here. So it was definitely a trip.
For sure. Any pro tips on how to keep kids entertained on a 14-hour ride?
I feel like I should have tips, and I totally don't, because it was just like going back and forth the whole time. We had to switch seats, take breaks, screen time, books, all the things.
I feel you. Well, hopefully the more trips you take, the more tips you'll be able to gather,
Absolutely.
All right. My second question for you is, what would you like the audience to know about you?
Let's see. We'll just start with like basic stuff. So actually, let's start with some fun stuff. My grandma's from Holland, so that's where the pronunciation of my name comes from. The J is a y sound. So I am Dutch. Let's see. I am an aerialist in the circus. I've been doing that for almost a decade, which is super fun. I have 3 kids. I live in South Dakota, and some people are probably like, where the hell is that? It's not in the South. It is actually in the North, and we get freezing cold. Those are like some really quick things about me.
For sure. An aerialist in the circus. That is bananas.
Yes. I know, right? You don't really hear that too often, but I randomly got into it and then just stayed.
For sure. Does this mean you travel a lot, or is it, just in town kind of circus?
We did like local stuff for a while. I traveled to the Dominican, not with the circus, but to train for it. So I was in the Dominican for about 10 days, just doing silks training and a bunch of cool stuff on the beach. That was fun. But no, I've never like actually traveled to somewhere big, just more local gigs.
I got you. You've been training for a while? Like, did you start off when you were young and, it kind of led to that, or?
I started when I was like, 23, 24. And after I just kept going. So I've had two kids since I joined. And so I would take breaks while I was pregnant and then just get right back in once I felt good. And yeah, still doing it.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I don't think I could do it. I'm not, I'm afraid of heights and whatnot. So I don't know how you do it.
Yeah, I think it's definitely like, it's a challenge more than just like physical, but mental as well. You have to really be, it's like, it takes a lot of focus. And so I like it, I think, because it's so challenging, and it's like a way to challenge my physical body and my mentality, like all of it. So it's definitely, I would totally recommend to anybody who is wanting to like just try something new, go and take, even if it's like aerial yoga, super fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna try it one time at least, I'm
all
all about
just at least once.
For sure. I had another question about it, but it's cool. It'll come back to me later. My next question for you is, on a scale from 1 to 10, how well do you know yourself?
You know, now that I am in my 30s, I think I know myself a lot better now than I did in my 20s. Thank God. I feel like my 20s was the time to just like experiment and go through a bunch of different things. And now that I'm older, I feel way more me and way more living the way that I want to live. Just like making more choices that are more like intentional now.
For sure.
I didn't give a 1 to 10. So I feel like I'm like an 8. Like I'm almost there. I'm still learning, still growing, but I feel like I'm like on the cusp.
It's a good place to be.
Yeah.
I know for myself, I'm 31, so early 30s, but definitely I feel like when I turned 30, if like I had a clearer vision of the stuff that I enjoyed and versus the stuff I didn't, and making the choice between things became a lot easier just because, you know, I guess I could be more true to myself. But yeah, I feel you on that.
Yep, feel the same. I'm 31 as well. So we're same age. Yeah. I'm like, once you hit 30, man, I feel like it's like just time to like truly just keep learning, and almost like it's more like a focused learning yourself. Whereas before it was just like trying everything and seeing like what stuck. And now it's like, okay, this stuff is stuck. Now how can I actually, I guess, and I said that before, but just being way more intentional with like how I'm spending my time, what I'm choosing to do, how I'm choosing to live my life. Whereas before it was just kind of trying everything and seeing if I liked it and if I didn't. And sometimes I even stayed even if I didn't, just because I was still learning and growing. So yeah, I feel I'm happier to get older. I know some people talk about getting older and it's like a bummer, but I'm like, oh my gosh, it's been a good thing for me. I like getting older. It feels more, I don't know, secure and like I just keep getting happier and in a place that I want to be, if that makes sense.
No, it does. Yeah, I would relate the 20s era is like more of go with the flow kind of feeling. Yeah. But then now you're creating your own flow as you get older, and it's like, all right, well, this is what I'm doing versus trying to be a part of what everybody else is doing.
Totally.
Yeah, cool. And what would you say is your favorite thing about your personality?
Ooh. My favorite thing would probably be I'm very like energetic most of the time. So I can hop on a call or walk in a room and I'm like, hey, how's it going? And it's not ever faking. It's just totally how I show up. And I think that that's something that I'm complimented on most. And that's something that like, because, you know, sometimes you can receive compliments and you're like, oh, I don't know. But when I receive that compliment, I'm like, yes. Like, I feel good that I bring energy and excitement and like fun into conversations and into whatever I'm doing.
That's dope. Would you say you've always been like that, or was it something you kind of developed that energy?
Yeah, I think that I've always showed up like that.
For sure. And you know, you talked about how it could come off as fake. Have you ever been challenged that way, and like someone came up to you and just kind of gave you a bad vibe just because they thought that it wasn't sincere, like that energy coming from you?
I don't think that I've ever had it be like questioned, because I think that my energy probably shifts when I see somebody who might be on a different vibe than me. So instead of being like, hi, how's it going? And faking it for real, then I just kind of almost not lower my vibe, but just, gosh, this is a hard question, man. I'm like, oh, I don't know. Maybe there has, but I feel like there's nothing that stands out that's been like, I've never really been called out on it. I'm like, but you know, people talk about it. I'm sure someone's like, oh God, Chris, she's always just like 100%. That can be overwhelming sometimes, which I'm sure it can be. But at least from my perspective, I'm like, I would never be fake. Like if I didn't feel like being excited that day, I wouldn't show up like that. I would show up how I felt. So I don't know. This question is like stumping me. I don't know why. It's making me think more about like how I'm showing up at all times.
No, I'm not trying to make you overthink. I think since it hasn't come up for you, that's a good sign. Like, you know,
Yeah.
for sure. All right, well, let's go ahead and jump into something. You're the first person to ever do this next thing, which is the vibe check.
Cool.
Yeah, I created this just because I wanted to see where my guests were coming from. I felt like these 4 things right here will give me and the audience a good idea of, you know, where you're coming from. So
Right.
the first one is about being open-minded or close-minded. Do you feel like you're more open-minded or close-minded or somewhere in between?
Open most of the time.
For sure. What's the last thing you would say that you were just like, nope, I'm not doing that? Like last time you were close-minded.
Ooh. You know, I can't even recall. So let's just say I'm all the way open, because I feel like I live my life pretty much on try everything once, obviously being safe and, you know, smart about it. But I'm a huge advocate in being open-minded and trying to teach my kids that as well. So I have to live what I preach, right? So I think most of the time I live pretty open-minded. I can't even recall the last time I was like, nope, not doing that.
Cool. What would you say is the biggest, I guess, advantage or benefit from having an open mind?
You find things that you may have been closed off to before. So I'll just kind of pull back from my history a little bit. I was raised in a super conservative religious household, and I was just kind of told, you know, what to do and how to do it growing up. And so I would say that was maybe not closed-minded, but just very like, this is your path, stay on it. And I think once I was able to grow up and experience different things myself, I was able to find different groups and different just aspects of life that I was drawn to, because I was willing to think outside of what I had been taught. So when you go into things with an open mind, then maybe you're able to find either like a career path or a partner or a hobby that you may not have even known about if you would have just said, no, thanks. I mean, I'm even thinking of that movie, Yes Man, which I know it's like the hilarious side of it, right? Where it goes to like, he says yes to everything. But I think that living your life like that can also bring like way more happiness and excitement than the latter.
For sure. You know, life should be filled with experiences, right? And, you know, you're not going to be open to everything unless, you know, you're willing to try it.
Yeah.
And then the second bar or scale is, do you feel like you're more of a deep thinker, or you like to stay on the surface more?
I would say, looking at the scale, I'm in between deep and middle.
For sure.
Yeah, probably just depends on like the subject or the topic.
What's a subject you feel like you can get really, like, you've been in that rabbit hole where you dug really deep into it?
Probably religion, relationships. I think talking about all of that in general, I like to get really deep. But when it comes to things, and maybe other people can relate to this, I'm not sure, I'd like to hear your thoughts. But like, if it's something that either I don't understand fully, it's almost easier if I just stay shallow until I can educate myself more on it. I get like nervous that I'm going to say something wrong or maybe offend somebody because I don't know. And so I'd rather go deep into that like alone than go deep into it with somebody else.
I got you.
Yeah.
No, I'm similar in a way where this podcast is probably the most talkative I'll ever really be if you caught me in my normal life, because I don't ever feel too knowledgeable about any topic that either my friends or the people I'm with know about. So I'm always just listening and just trying to learn more before, because, you know, I don't want to add to the conversation if it isn't going to be with some kind of substance. So yeah, that's how it is sometimes.
Yeah, I get that.
For sure. Well, can't wait to jump into religion and relationships with you after this.
Yes.
And then the third one is sunny skies or gray clouds. Like, are you more of a bright side kind of person, or you more realistic?
Oh yeah, sunny skies all day.
Has anyone ever told you how that might not be their type of thing? Because I've been kind of challenged before, and they told me it can be a little annoying when you have someone that's always overly positive, you know?
Yes. With my partner, he's hilarious. I love our dynamic though, because I am all the way like sunny skies. I wouldn't say he's cloudy skies, but he's like overcast with some sun sometimes, and like, you know, all the weather. But he is like the voice of reason behind all of my like amazing, fantastic, there's only one great outcome ever. And he's like, okay, but let's look at it this way, and what about this, and what if this would happen, and did you think about this? And I'm like, oh my gosh, no, I didn't think about any of that. Like, I'd rather just look at it like it's gonna be phenomenal and just not have to think about the shit that could happen. And so I like the dynamic of having that, but I also think, as far as like the relationships and the people that you choose to surround yourself with, if you choose to surround yourself with people who are negative most of the time, then you totally tend to be negative most of the time. But if you're surrounding yourself with friends that are looking at the good and the joy and the gratitude in life, then you tend to lean more positive. So I think that it's like a vibe thing where you can choose to look at things in a bright light, or you can choose to look at everything that comes into your life as the bad side of it.
I gotcha. This is something I'm at a crossroads with, because in my mind I want to be like, if I'm going to be either positive or negative, I might as well be on the positive side all the time, because I feel like there's already a lot of negativity that's around in the world. But yeah, I know balance is key, and
yes.
I guess I would have to say I have to humble myself and remind myself I don't know everything, and I have to continue to be open-minded about being wrong.
Yeah, all of this is like intermingled. It's great.
And my last one for you is, are we all one, or are we truly individuals?
Ooh, this is a really good question. It's a deep question. We're going deep now. I think we're all individuals, but that's what all makes us one, right? Like a pizza. There's individual slices, but together we make one full pizza. I think it can be both.
I gotcha. That was a good way to answer that. Yeah, I don't know if you've ever seen Osmosis Jones. But yeah, similar way where, like, we're all cells of one body. Yeah. So I don't know the theories out there, but I don't know. It's just this vibe that I've been feeling, and I don't think I'm the only one. But yeah, real quick. So you mentioned about getting deep with religion and relationships.
Yeah.
So I gotta ask you, are you more religious or spiritual? What would you consider yourself?
I used to think that they went together. So I used to think that if you were religious, then you were a spiritual person. And when I decided to leave the religion that I had been brought up in, I realized that spirituality can mean so many things, and it does, to so many different types of people. And I would say I'm trying to figure out my spirituality now, because I think I had it so tied to what I thought it meant for so many years that now thinking it can mean anything looks so different to me, that I feel like I'm just on my journey trying to figure out what it means to me and what it looks like to me. And it almost morphs year by year. It changes and looks different. And I like something for a little while and then it doesn't feel like it's aligned anymore later. And I think spirituality just looks like a an ever evolving journey to me.
For sure. I would totally agree. My background is, I was raised Catholic, went to Catholic school from K through 8, private school, all that jazz. But now, for me, I kind of, someone called me a self-theorizing theologian. Basically, I take pieces of all religions and I create my own idea of what it is. So yeah, at this point, that's where I'm at. What do you think?
That's great.
How do you feel about the afterlife? Like, what do you envision? Do you see? Is it reincarnation? Is it heaven, hell?
Yeah. Whoa. That's also something that I've been trying to dissect, because in my religion we're taught that there is an afterlife and you live with God, and depending on how you live your life here is what happens to you in the afterlife, right? So, if we're choosing the right and doing what we're supposed to, making God happy, then we get to live in heaven with him and our family. And if not, then we just go to maybe not necessarily hell, but just kind of like a sad place where everyone's just moping around, I guess. And thinking about it now, I truly think that obviously I feel like we don't know anything about it, but if I were to just create this vision of what I think it would look like, maybe is I truly think maybe reincarnation and us becoming like animals at one time, or anything that's living, maybe a plant. And who even knows about how long lifespans truly are? Like, are we really here for years and years? I don't know. Or is that just something that we've made up as humans? That's a deep conversation, and it's kind of like an ever-going conversation. There's so many different things that you could come up with. It's kind of fun.
It's tough because I like to think and be creative and be imaginative with these questions that we don't have answers to. But on the flip side, there's a lot of folks who have said that why waste your time thinking about something you'll never know about? It's almost detrimental to the time that you do have already.
I get that.
But no, I mean, for me, I just can't help but, theorize and ask what other people think. I'm a big consumer of media, so I watch a lot of TV shows, movies, and whatnot. I don't know if you ever heard of American Gods. Does that ring a bell for you?
No.
It's a very interesting story, TV show based on a book, and basically they personify the things that people worship. So they have a god for technology as a person. They have a god for, past religions. So there are all these characters in this story. But the thing that they said about the afterlife was you're going to get what you believe in. So whatever that particular person believes in, at the end, that's what you're going to see. And it's not going to, I know, I
like that.
It was interesting.
Well, I mean, that kind of goes to the belief even now that we can create our own reality. So if we can create the life that we want, kind of like manifestation. So totally, I like looking at it that way, as whatever you want the afterlife to look like, just imagine it like that, and boom, it'll be like that.
I hope so.
Right.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and jump into some of the questions. And earlier you chose the wheel, so we'll turn it over to the Wheel of Fate right here, and let's give it a first spin. If there's any questions that you feel are too deep or you'd rather not answer, feel free to pass, and we'll just spin again. Here we go. Five, easy. So your first question is, what artist, song, or album has inspired you?
Gosh. Gwen Stefani. I was so intrigued with her. I was 15, I think, when she left No Doubt and did her own thing. And I loved her. I loved her album. I loved her whole personification, everything about, I always loved Gwen, who doesn't? But I think that was just such a powerful thing for me to see as a young woman, is to see this really badass girl, just kind of doing whatever she wanted. So yeah, Gwen, for sure, then and now.
For sure. Have you ever been able to see her perform live?
Oh my gosh, let me just tell you this quick story. So I grew up super religious, right? And my mom was all about like keeping the Sabbath day holy. My aunt had tickets to Black Eyed Peas were opening up for Gwen Stefani. I grew up in Arizona, so the concert was in Phoenix, and she asked my mom if she could buy tickets, and my mom said no because it was on a Sunday, and I was like, you're ruining my life. So I could have, but no, I had to keep the Sabbath day holy and not see Gwen in concert. And no, I haven't. As an adult, I still have not been able to see her in concert. Maybe one day.
One day, yeah. I think, there's this new trend of older acts like coming up and, going on tour. So I think there'll be another chance. Because I haven't heard of a Gwen Stefani concert in a long time. So I think she's due.
Oh, yeah. Or maybe she'll like go on tour with Blake Shelton now or something and do some sort of like country rock show. Who knows?
Also kind of curious, what was the first album you remember purchasing?
Oh, for sure, Britney Spears. Like her very first one. I remember getting that and being like stoked and so excited that I had it. What about you? What was your first album?
The first album I bought. It's funny when I think about it. I was at probably, I don't know if you guys had FYEs, but it's like For Your Entertainment. That was like the store. That was just called. But I think my first one was a Nas album.
Okay.
I'm a big hip hop head, and
awesome.
Nas was like the first artist that got me like listening to hip hop and rap. So I remember when I got a chance to buy an album, first one I bought that was the cheapest. I was like, cool, I'm gonna get this. It turned out to be like, I guess his worst album according to the critics. It's so cheap. But I remember buying that and I was like so stoked.
Yes. It's like the best feeling ever. You're like, finally, and then you listen to it in your room like over and over again. I remember that.
Yeah, when we were pretty much like, you can't listen to everything at one time. You had to choose what mood you're going to be in the whole day, or like which CDs you're going to carry.
Right. Yes. Oh gosh, funny.
Quick story, concert story on my end, because you mentioned Britney Spears. So my cousins on my dad's side, all my cousins are girls, and growing up they were really into NSYNC. NSYNC is dope. I'm not gonna lie, but it was a no strings attached tour with them and Britney, and they were getting me to like go with them. I don't know, I was like 9 or 10, and being a young boy, I was like, I don't want to go to an NSYNC concert. I'm too cool for that. But now, in hindsight, I was like, damn, I should have went. Probably
would have loved it.
Yeah.
Funny.
I don't know why, but, too much pride in a 10-year-old,
Yes. Funny.
All right, well, let's go ahead and give it another spin. Ooh, all right. 10 hard.
Ooh.
And 10 hard is, what words do you need to hear?
What words do I need to hear? That is kind of a funny question for me, only because my love language is words of affirmation, 100%. Whew. You're appreciated. I appreciate you. You're doing so great. That would like make my entire year hearing that. I appreciate you. I love what you're doing. From anybody, like people I work for, my mom, my husband. Oh yeah, for sure. Those words. That's a good one.
I got you. Well, I'll tell you this right now. I appreciate the energy you're bringing to the interview. So, yeah.
Oh, that warms my heart.
So you mentioned love languages. Yeah, and words of affirmation is your main one? Because I know there's a main and a secondary one. What would you say is your secondary one?
Okay, so for love language as well, you can you can be a mix. I think for me, love languages or words of affirmation is how I feel the most loved and quality time, but how I express it is totally different. How I express my love is gifts and quality time. I love to make and purchase gifts for people that I love. And have you dove into the love languages at all?
I know that there's 5, and I feel like I know which ones are mine. I didn't do a lot of research. Drop some knowledge on me if you can.
Yeah. So it's really important to know like your partner or your, close friends or whoever that you're like interacting with, because the way that you give love could potentially be not one of their love languages. So say that I was giving gifts, but that person didn't feel loved by getting a gift. They felt loved by quality time and physical touch, and I was never, like patting them on the back or saying you're appreciated. And so they were like, this person doesn't love me. Like, she's always getting me gifts, but I don't feel loved that way. So it's important to know other people's love languages, especially those that you're interacting with a bunch, so that you can work on showing them love the way that they feel loved. And then you have to know your love language, so you can be like, listen, that's really nice that you're giving me gifts, but like, don't care about them. What would make me feel really good is just like a really nice hug at the end of the day, or a pat on the back, or just like holding my hand in public. Like, that makes me feel way more loved than you coming home with flowers and a gift card. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Makes me wonder, do you think love languages are nurtured? Like, it's based on the way we were kind of raised or the people that were around us, or is it in our DNA? Like
maybe if my mom constantly told me, you're so great, you're so awesome, maybe she formed me into a person who needed words of affirmation. You know what I mean? That could maybe, that's interesting to think about. However, it doesn't just apply for like a relationship with like my husband. It also applies to like everything around me, my work, or even like when I teach bar or my kids. So I kind of wonder if it's also just like a personality type, but maybe you developed it a little bit more because of other things that happened around you. I had never thought about that. That's a great question.
Yeah, I mean,
and everyone will never know.
Exactly. Like, there's no right answer, right? It all depends. Yeah, I mean, thinking about the way I was raised, like, my parents gave me a lot of words of affirmation. At least my mom did. Of course, my mom did. And but like that, I can't really accept compliments now that I'm older. For some reason, it just doesn't feel right, because for whatever reason, my love languages, I would think, are gift giving and quality time as well, just because but yeah, in that sense, what would you say has been the greatest gift that you've given? Like you said, you're a gift giver, right?
Yeah, I have given all of my best gifts to my best friend. However, I'm working on this book that I'm going to give Lily. She's my oldest, when she graduates, and I kind of feel like a jerk because I haven't started anything for the 2 youngest. But Lily's going to get a cool ass gift when she graduates. I started writing this book when she was born, and I just have like documented all the things that obviously not all the things, that's a lot of stuff, but I've documented a bunch of things from when she was born, and me and her dad got divorced when she was 2.5. So like, that's in there, and like her new stepmom wrote in there, and my husband has written in there, and her grandmas and grandpas and cousins, maybe not cousins, aunts and uncles, and just like pictures and love letters and just like all the things. And I'm hoping that, when she graduates, I can give that to her, which it's really funny because we all have different values and all have different like words that are associated with like our emotions and what we think would be like a really great gift, right? So to me, if someone had given me that would be like an incredible thing, because you can keep this forever and always reference back. And who knows, at the time she gets it, there might be somebody who wrote in there that is now passed, and now she has this special note from them. But I'm like, will she care, you know, or will she just be like, okay, like, cool, mom, thanks. So I think as a parent, you almost have to disconnect from the expectation of what if your child is going to love it or hate it. You just have to be like, I'm creating this thing, I'm going to put it together and I'm going to give it to them. They may love it, they may hate it, they may not care either way. And so I think as I'm just talking and like unpacking all of this right now in real time, is that I'm like, oh shit, I really hope that she loves it, you know, because that would be so sad for me if I gave it to her and she didn't love it like I did. But then there's my job as a parent to not be attached to that how she receives it, if that all makes sense.
It makes a ton of sense to me. Just in the way that for me, like this whole podcast is in a similar sense, you know, I like to think of it as a gift I'm giving you and your family on like seeing who you are at this point in your life. And it might not be, you know, something that they want to see right now, but I believe in the future that it's going to hold some value to you and yours, and they'll look back. So same thing with the book you're creating for your daughter. It's just like, yeah, maybe at 18 she won't get it, but I 100% believe as she gets older it's going to be more valuable to her. So it's just one of those things. So temper your expectations when you give it, but just know as you get older it's just going to go up in value for her.
Yeah, that's it. That's good. That's a good way. Good way of explaining it. Love it.
For sure. Let's go ahead and do another spin. Ooh. 22 easy. Back to easy. And this question is, here we go. What was the greatest gift you've ever received?
The best gift. Undeniably, when I was 8, I believe, I came home from school and my mom had gone shopping with her best friend and had bought me a like 2-piece set that was bright red with white stripes like all the way up the side and a zipper that went down on the top. And I remember just like, I will never forget that jumpsuit. And I wore it all the time, like probably 2 times a week to school. And my mom, I'm sure, was like, okay, Chris, like it's time for you to choose a different outfit. But that outfit was my absolute favorite. I wore it up until it was probably way too tight to be wearing. But I think the whole like me not knowing that she was bringing me back a gift and then coming in and having that be on my bed and her just being like, I saw this and I thought of you. I will never, ever forget that gift. And I know that that's kind of a silly thing, but we all receive gifts our whole lives. And that was just something that the whole feeling that came with it, I think was the best.
That's awesome. That was a great story. Yeah. And we're not saying that any other gifts you've gotten are not as good. It's just that this one was the one that came to mind. I just wanted to throw it out there, like no shade.
Yeah, there's your sunny side, like being like very optimistic, and I'm like, oh, but you're like, but remember that there's everything else is good, but this one, I love it. Okay, anyways, let's do another question.
Yeah. If anyone that's listening to this might be like, hey, what about that gift I got her or whatever, I just.
Yeah, they're like, gosh, Chris, thanks. No, I love it. Disclaimer, everybody else's gifts were great too.
Yeah. There we go. Ooh, back to hard. No mediums today. 8 hard. Here we go. Are you using your time wisely?
Probably not. I think sometimes I do, but sometimes I definitely don't. This is not a very deep answer at all, but like I had said at the beginning of the show, am really working on being way more intentional. And I actually just did a podcast episode with this. I'm co-hosting a podcast with one of my clients, and we were talking about that and how both of us had this mindset. I mean, we were kind of just, as a service-based, provider, and working with so many different clients, you can almost say or think really at all, no matter who you are, you might feel this way. It doesn't just have to be, as a service-based provider. But I look at my calendar and I think I have to be working from 8 to 5 in order to fulfill all of these job, deliverables that I have to be getting done and getting out to my clients. When really, once I sit down and write out all of my due dates and the timeline, I really probably only need to be working 4 hours a day, and I could still be, getting all my shit done. And so it's really interesting that I would just fill up my schedule just because I felt like I needed to, rather than okay, using my optimal energy time. So I'm the most energetic and focused and zoned in between 5:30 a.m. and 1 p.m. So instead of just really utilizing those hours for the most focused, urgent tasks that need to get done, I feel sometimes I'm just floundering throughout the day, and I'm hopping from client to client and subject to subject and project to project, that I'm really busy and I'm filling up my time, but sometimes I'm what the fuck did I even do today? It seems like I just went from thing to thing to thing and I didn't even accomplish anything. And so the best thing probably for my personality is every morning to sit down and write out, okay, you need to get this done, this done, and this done. And the rest of it could really probably wait, or is just kind of a thing that you made up in your head. Okay, I want to, go get my nails done. That's not something that needs to happen today. It's just something that I want to write down and make sure that it happens at some point. So I think that taking all of the stuff that's in my brain and actually putting it out on paper and then listing what needs to be done is probably the best for my personality, and will probably help me utilize my time better, because right now I think I'm just oh my gosh, there's 1,000 things in my head. Let's just start doing whatever one pops into the front at that time. And that's why I probably am jumping from thing to thing to thing all the time.
The practice of writing things down, have you been doing it, or is it something you're planning to start?
I'm just starting it. So I actually wrote some things down today, which was really great. I'm looking at it right now as we're talking. And I do have a planner. I like to have a physical planner just so that I make sure that I'm looking at both. My Google Calendar and my physical planner, and then I just write down the list at the bottom and then just check it off as it happens. So I've been trying really hard the past week or two to be writing things out instead of just trying to go hope that my brain will remember all the things and then be able to put them in order of what's the most important.
I gotcha. I know it's only been a week or two, but have you noticed any differences in, your days or how you're feeling?
It's taken the urgency or the pressure off of me that everything needs to be done today, which is a huge relief just in itself, is to know okay, keep your boundaries, keep your time boundaries. Focus on the most important things. It also helps a lot with communication, especially when you're working with, different teams at different levels and different time zones. It's just keeping communication. Hey, I know we're working on this project. I will have it to you on Friday, so that at least they know when it's expected to be done. And then I have it on my list of when I'm working on it. And I think that communication is just a huge part of, and boundaries is just a huge part of life in general. And the more that I incorporate it into my daily life and my career and my family, it just feels a lot more consistent and okay, I can tackle this for sure, and not so overwhelming. That's the word I was looking for.
For sure. Well, I'm glad it's helping, even though it's just early. But stick with it. I think you're on a great path. It's definitely something I need to do as well. I have this bad habit of I don't know if you ever heard like hurry up and wait, like as a phrase at jobs.
Oh, hurry up and wait.
Yeah. I've done that basically my whole career at different various jobs, and then now with this podcast I'm trying to break that, which is weird because I just want to be productive and stay consistent without feeling like, all right, I'm gonna jam everything into today and I don't have to do anything for a while. Trying to spread it out, just trying to not get overwhelmed, because sometimes that happens, right? But yeah. All right, cool. Let's give it another spin. Just a heads up, we have about 10-15 minutes left in the podcast. Wanted to thank you again for stopping by. It's been going by like a breeze. So
yeah, I love this.
Here we go. Let's tackle one more number. Oh, there we go. A medium.
Save the best for last.
33, medium. What were you wrong about?
Whoa. All the things, so many things. What was I wrong about? That's funny because I was just talking to my oldest about, she's like in the preteen stage now, like the tween, where like from 9 to 12, and she's about ready to turn 9. And so I overheard her the other day we were like at this play park, and she was telling these boys that she was 12, and I was like, whoa, just like thinking that, right? And she had found these jewels that she had like put on her ear, and she was pretending she had piercings, whatever. And so I was talking to her about that later in the car. Like I was like, hey, like I heard, you tell these boys you were 12, and let's talk about it. And she said, well, sometimes it's fun to pretend that you are older. And I said, oh, I remember that. Like, I totally remember wanting to be older, right? Like, I just wanted to be 16 so that I could drive. And I just wanted to be 18 so I could get the hell out of my mom's house. And I remember just wanting to be 21 so I could like go to the bar. And nothing ever, like I reached those ages, and then it's not like really I was happier or felt like all of a sudden better. And so I was trying to tell her to just, and I mean, it's so hard to tell somebody, right? Like, just enjoy where you're at, because we have all been there where we want to be somewhere different or be a different age or whatever. And I was like, oh, and then you turn, 31, Lil, and you wish that you were back at your mom's house. So she was like taking care of you. And she was like, you wish that Nana was still taking care of you? And I was like, sometimes. I'm like, I wish that I would have enjoyed like every stage and every age, and just really tried to be more present with where I was at the time. And so I was so wrong that I would be happier or better once I reached a certain age. And I'm just learning now that it's not like once you get somewhere that you'll be happy. Like, you can be happy now, and you can be full of life and energy and live this passionate, fun life now, and not expect, that you will all of a sudden be fulfilled at a certain age or a certain destination.
How did she respond to that?
I mean, she's 8 or almost 9, and so I think she was like, oh my gosh, whatever, like it's still fun to pretend you're older. And I was like, yeah, I get it. And she'll probably continue to pretend she's older, which is totally fine. But yeah, I think that maybe that was more for me. Like, when I was talking about it, I'm like, afterwards, maybe that was more a reminder for me to remember to just live in the present and just be all the things now, be happy now, and not wish for like a different date or a different age or whatever it is that you're seeking.
I feel you. You said you had three kids?
Yep, 3 kids.
Have you been able to see yourself in them so far, or is it still too early?
Yeah, I mean, Lily a lot, and just in ways that I didn't even think I mean, and also things that I was actually, so my mom's here visiting, and I was just telling her just this morning, actually, I said, sometimes it's hard as a parent to have your child not be interested or like driven in the same ways that you are. And it reminds you that your child like isn't you, and they aren't even, I know some people use that term like mini me, but yeah, she might look like me, but she is like totally her own person. We might have some same similarities or some same characteristics, but she very much like is her own person. And it's, as a parent, it's very like eye-opening, a great reminder that these humans are their own person, and you are there to like lead and guide them, but also there to like watch them make their own choices. And my two youngest, I mean, Stone and Roxanne are so little. Stone just turned 3 and Roxanne just turned 1. And Stone is just like so high energy 24/7. So maybe that's a little bit like me, but I think for the little ones, it's just, they're just little and we're just loving them up. But watching Lily, that's a super fun thing too, is like watching your kids grow into who they are and who they're wanting to be, and watching them explore and like experiment and like make choices by themselves and try and push your buttons. It's so cool to watch all of that and be like, oh my gosh, like I wonder, what you're going to do with your life. Like there's so many different routes and different ways and different things, and you just are there to like support whatever they choose to do. So it's really cool.
Yeah, it's an amazing journey. Well, I haven't taken part of that journey yet, but it's definitely something I'll be looking forward to.
Yeah.
And on the flip side to that question, how have you seen your parents in you as you've gotten older?
Yes. And I think that just happens like naturally and in different ways. I think I was just telling somebody a story the other day where I was like, oh my gosh, I am totally my mom right here. And I think that I probably show up or have a part of her in a lot more than I would like to admit. But also I reached this stage about 2 years ago where I started to see my mom as a human being more than just my mom, but as like, oh my gosh, okay, when she had me, she was 29 and she was doing this and doing this, and she had, her own like hopes and dreams and feelings and emotions and like shit going on behind the scenes that you just don't know about as a kid. And it was such a like eye-opener for me to view her as that than just like, oh, that's my mom. Because I think you can be so hard on the people that you love the most. You almost forget that they too have like feelings and emotions that have nothing to do with you or related to you. And so with that being said, I've been a little bit more like accepting, because I think sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, I'm turning into my mom. Whereas now I'm like, I am a part, like she is a huge part of me and who, she raised me. And so I'm not as like bummed out about it, I guess, as I thought that I would be. Like it's kind of like endearing that I'm like, oh, I'm like my mom in that way. Like that's nice. It's a nice trait.
For sure. I mean, that's definitely part of the circle of life. You get older, you see how you are like your folks and how your kids are like you. We're all connected in that way. And yeah, well, we made it to the final stretch of the podcast. We made it. Just got a few closeout questions for you. This first one is, if I were to do an act in your honor, what sort of act could I do to pay a tribute to you?
An act?
Yeah. Like, what if I was going to tell myself today I'm going to do something in the honor of Christiana, what could I do?
That's a really great question. As soon as you said if I could do an act, I like immediately went to like you being on stage, like doing something. So let's just go with that. Like you would put on some sort of like interpretive dance. Let's do it. Yeah, that sounds great.
All right. I mean, I can't promise to interpret. I'm a horrible dancer, but getting up on stage and performing in honor of you, that I think that's something we can do for you.
Awesome.
So now we
Love
know.
it.
This next question is actually from my previous guest. Shout out to Dustin, and his question for you is, what makes you unique?
That's a hard one. I think because, gosh, when you live with yourself, you just don't really think you just think I'm just me. What makes me unique? Maybe my ability to always see the best in someone, always. Like I don't hold grudges. I don't judge. Like it's never like my first instinct to judge or to be like upset. It's usually my first instinct to be like, how are they feeling? Like what's happening with them? What's going on with them? That's one trait that kind of goes back to your question earlier. Like what's one trait that you admire? But now I'm going to use it for this one is I think that could be a unique thing about me is that I'm usually pretty open and pretty willing to just always love first.
For sure. We definitely need more of that energy out there. So keep doing you. And then my second to last question is, what would you like to ask the next guest that comes on to 34 questions?
Good one. So many questions to think about. What is a really great question? Thought-provoking question. What are you doing right now that makes you feel the most free and alive?
Okay. I'm just writing it down. Makes you feel the most free and alive. I gotcha. We'll see who ends up answering this question next.
Heck yeah. Can't wait.
And then the last question of the pod, the question that ties everything together is, think of your great-great-grandchildren. If they were watching this video, what would you like to tell them?
Let's go back to what you asked for your middle question, like the middle chart question is, are we all individuals or all one? And I think thinking of my own generational line, I think I feel so connected, especially to the women in my generation. So for my grandkids, even though they're going to be different and living at a completely different time than me and have different experiences, we'll all still always be connected and be like this one thread that we're all holding on to.
For sure. And any last things before we head out of here? If you want to plug in your podcast or anything that you're doing, feel free to do it here as well.
Yeah, I mean, people can totally check out the podcast. My podcast platform is for people who want to share their stories, vulnerable, get real and raw. It's called The Red Door. And if you want to hear some pretty awesome stories from fellow humans, check it out.
I'm with you. Awesome. I'll definitely check it out. The Red Door.
Red Door.
Kind of curious, how did that name come up?
I was just telling somebody this yesterday too. I'm like, I had a red door. When I bought my first house, like by myself, my door was red. And I had always said that I wanted a red door. And it just happened to be that when I bought this house, it had a red door. And when I was thinking about the podcast, I was thinking, what is something that is like, universal of me being like raw and real. And I feel like at that time in my life, when I was buying the house, it was a very transitional, vulnerable time. And so I was just like, okay, let's just do it. Let's just do the red door. That makes the most sense. So that's why.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It was super difficult for me to come up with 34 questions. So I was just curious how it came up with for you.
It's fabulous. This is such a great platform. And then the idea, it's amazing. I love it. Huge fan.
Definitely appreciate it. want to thank you again for your time. I want to thank all the folks out there. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple, wherever, YouTube, I want to thank you for your time as well. If you liked it, please like it. If you loved it, please subscribe and share. Remember to reach out, reach forward. As always, much love, and we'll catch you guys next time on 34 Questions. Peace.
Bye.
All right, this is my ending credits, post-credit scene. Just wanted to ask you how you feeling. How was the experience for you?
Oh, it was so great. This was so much fun. I loved the whole energy and format of it. It was amazing.
Awesome. Thank you. I mean, I was gonna say, to be honest with you, this episode won't be released on my main channels until a long time from now. I just want to give you a heads up. I'm sure you understand doing your own podcast.
Oh my gosh, dude. I have people reach out to me and they're like, when's my episode going live? And I'm like, I do all my own shit. Like, I don't know. It could come out in like 5 months. It could come out next Tuesday. Like, I don't know. So I get it. Believe me. You can just let me know, even if it's early next year, whatever. It's fine.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you right now. Then it's looking like a year right now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But for me to get everything done and ready, I can definitely send you a copy a lot sooner, with the clips that I've made. But you could clip it up yourself as well. But yeah, we'll definitely be in touch. I'll let you know when your video gets done being edited, and please shoot me all the links and stuff that you'd like to be in the description and stuff. And yeah, I think that's
awesome.
it.
Thanks so much for having me. This was so fun.
I'm glad you enjoyed. And yes.